So Eddie Hearn just revealed far more than a few fight updates. Behind the headlines sits a shifting power structure involving Turki Al-Ashaik, Dana White, Matchroom, and boxing's biggest stars. From Boots defining test to AJ Fury politics, these are 7 moments that expose where the sport is really heading. So Eddie Hearn just revealed far more than a few fight updates. Behind the headline sits a shifting power structure involving Turki Al-Ashaik, Dana White, and Matchroom, and boxing's biggest stars. From Boots defining test to AJ Fury politics, these 7 moments expose where the sport is really heading. So let's get into this. And the first point in this interview actually refers to something different, which is Boots versus Xander's ass. From Eddie Hearn's perspective, winning is not enough. So winning isn't enough, and the nature of the victory determines the superstar status. Now, Eddie Hearn flags Xander's confidence. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's flagging Xander's confidence as a genuine danger. And clearly confidence can make competition even stronger. But I think the big thing here is, how good is Boots Ennis? How good is he? Is he good? Is he great? Is he elite? Where is he from 1 to 10? And I agree with the premise of Eddie Hearn. A win isn't enough. It's how you win. Because how you win determines the marketability. It determines the virality. Now the second point goes into the contact, and this is the contract clause that locks out Dana White, AJ, and Fury, or what I should say, the contract clause that locks out Dana White. And according to Eddie Hearn, this clause explicitly bars Dana White, TKO, and Zuffa from being the promoter or being the named promoter. And here's an important concession here. According to Eddie Hearn, and I think we all know this, Turki Al-Ashaik, again, apologies if the pronunciation isn't perfect, Turki Al-Ashaik from Saudi, he holds the real power. And the question is, what is the real power? And you can define the real power perhaps in 3 separate categories or in 3 phases. Massive financial backing, absolutely massive financial backing. The ability to unify promoters, so to get promoters to work together. And then we have the ownership of major boxing entities. The actual ownership of major boxing entities. Think of the Ring magazine. So Turki Al-Ashaik is the real power behind this, the real power behind the monopoly. And the next statement from the interview is that Zuffa had to delete their own posts after publicly claiming to promote AJ Fury. To me, that is a power move, or perhaps it's a concession. Of course, this back and forth, publicly claiming to promote and then having to take it down, it's marketing. But is it effective marketing? And is it good marketing for who? Is it good marketing for Zuffa or good marketing for Eddie? That's a good question, because we're seeing power moves being played right before our eyes. The next statement is that Eddie is open to renegotiating if Turki Al-Ashaik wants to fight in America with Dana involved. So what Eddie Hearn's positioning here is that yes, Dana's been taken out, but he could be put back in. But what are those conditions? That means a change in the deal. But what does that do with regard to the power and the money? I would assume that a renegotiation would be favorable, massively favorable to Eddie Hearn. However, how important is it for Zuffa and for Dana White to get their foot through the door? Is the financial concession, is it worth it? Perhaps it is, depending on the details. And I think from my perspective, it shows that there's a lot that's going on. We're getting a lot of the details, a lot of the context, but the final details have not been finalized. So Dana White could be involved, even though currently at this stage of negotiation, he is not involved. Before we move on to the next point, I want to go back to the previous point, and that's to acknowledge that Turki Al-Ashaik has so much power within boxing, and part of that power has to do with his massive financial leverage, or his biggest financial leverage. And there's a lesson here, and that is, in capitalism, the person with the most money has a massive head start. It doesn't mean the person with the most money necessarily automatically wins, but they have the biggest leverage. And when you're dealing with these entities, Dana White, let's call that entity 1, Eddie Hearn, entity 2, Turki Al-Ashaik, entity 3, and with all those entities, there's multiple of other entities, the person with the most money often has the better chance of victory. And it seems to me that Turki Al-Ashaik has the ability to navigate and call the shots. And this has got to do with the fact that he has perhaps the most financial leverage. All three of these players have massive amounts of money behind them. But Turki Al-Ashaik seems to be number one, and that seems to be the reason why he has the real power. Now, of course, there's other elements such as being strategic and such as having an efficient team behind you, whether that's the marketing team, etc., and the growing business models as well of the infrastructures that are being built. But Turki Al-Ashaik at this point seems to have a significant advantage in the game. So now let's move on to Johnny Fisher. And Eddie Hearn states why Johnny Fisher left. Why did Johnny Fisher left? Well, simply, Zuffa's offer to Johnny Fisher is 6 times what Matchroom can pay for the same level of opponent. Maybe that's a over-exaggeration, but even if it's 3 times or 4 times, that's extremely significant. So Eddie's message was a good message, I think. Sign immediately and there's no hard feelings, because he can't sustain that model. I think it's really good when someone acknowledges that someone has a better opportunity elsewhere, they can give them their blessing. I think a lot of promoters wouldn't do that. So I like the fact that Eddie Hearn is encouraging Johnny Fisher to go in that direction, because that direction is going to be more beneficial for his development. Also, Eddie Hearn addressed Ben Whittaker fighting at Barclays. This is a US brand play, and US exposure, according to him, is non-negotiable for a global star that is building. Whittaker has viral numbers, and viral numbers attract casual fans. So what we're seeing here, what we're seeing with regards to Whittaker, is the building of his brand. And again, and I always say this, boxing is not just what you do in the ring, it's also what your machine is doing outside the ring. And that machine comprises also a Ben Whittaker. So it's not just about the fighting in the ring, which is essential, but it's also about the figurative fighting outside of the ring. And then we have the November fight schedule, which is going to be huge. I believe that AJ Fury is looked to be locked in for mid-November. That will be a huge fight, absolutely huge fight. Then we have Bam unifying. I'm really impressed with Bam. I love the footwork of Bam. His footwork is on another level, and he brings power and speed. Definitely a great fighter, and I'm looking forward to whoever he fights. Hopefully that competition will be elite. And of course, we would love to see that fight against Inoue. And then we have Bivol, and we have different potential matches for Bivol. Of course, we could have the Beterbiev trilogy, which would be incredible, or we could have the Benavidez fight, which would also be a massive fight. Eddie is framing this as the most stacked second half in boxing history. This is the most stacked boxing card. I'm assuming he means November is the most stacked boxing card in boxing history. Now, whether that premise is correct, because clearly Eddie knows how to market and he's a fairly loquacious brother, the point is this: in November, we are going to get some fantastic boxing. And this is something that us boxing purists and us boxing enthusiasts, we should be very excited about this. So here's my final statement. Think of this. Every major story here points to the same reality. Boxing's power is changing hands. Fighters, promoters, and even new players like Dana White are operating within a landscape increasingly shaped by Turki Al-Ashaik's influence. Meanwhile, the next generation, led by names like Boots and Whitaker, are fighting for more than wins. They're fighting for relevance, marketability, and a place at the center of boxing's future. So that's the end of the video. Now I'm trying to build a digital boxing community. That means I'm interested in your comments, I'm interested in your questions, and I'm interested in your observations. Now, if you want to support the channel, simply like and subscribe and click the hype button. And if you want to watch more content like this, then simply click here or click here. As always, thanks for your time. It is much appreciated.